Morning, church. I want to remind you of a couple of opportunities we have upcoming to make a difference in the lives of those who are less fortunate. First of all, in 2 weeks, on the 27th, we'll be taking up our annual Orphans Sunday contribution. We've been doing that for the several years now, sending those funds to Orphans Lifeline International. It's heartbreaking, but there are literally millions of children scattered around this world without a mommy or a daddy. And they desperately need rescue, they need help, and Orphans Lifeline International is on the front line of that fight. Do a tremendous, tremendous work. And it's our privilege once a year to do what we can to help them, and that again will take place on the 27th in 2 weeks. Also locally here, we're coming up on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and there's always a lot of pressure on our pantry during that time, folks who don't have enough food. And so if you want to contribute to purchase food for those who are less fortunate and in need here, give those checks to Charlie. He can purchase that food and make a difference in the lives of folks. So 2 opportunities to help. Please keep those in mind. We just started a series last week that I've entitled Raising Whole Kids in a Broken World. We talked last week about how important it is that we do everything we can to train up our children according to the Lord in the way that they should go. It's vital that we give our kids a good, solid foundation upon which to build their lives, because so many children are being robbed of that today, and they're not being given that foundation. One of the most important things we can do, as we talked about last week, is simply socialize our children. And by that, what I mean is we just give them the tools that they need to get along with their peers and to get along with their superiors. If they simply have those tools, they have gone a long ways toward having what many would term a successful life. Unfortunately, what we find today is so many children not being given those tools. And the result is a lot of the social chaos and even the violence that we see going on today. Our children are a real blessing. They're also a real responsibility. And I believe one of the most important lessons that we can teach them, one of the foundational points upon which they need to build their lives, is the importance of treating other people, and in particular God, with respect. And that's where I want to begin to focus this morning, is on the importance of teaching them respect. Now, you know and I know that's an uphill battle in our popular culture today. Name me someone or something today that's respected. I can't really think of anything in our popular culture or anyone that is genuinely respected today. What we find is a culture which just loves to rip apart and tear down, which loves to denigrate and sneer at and caricature. And it's a shame, because what's not being recognized but is being realized, I think, every day in a culture that's increasingly falling apart, is that one of the things that any society has to have, if that society is going to survive, is a sense of respect for the hierarchy within that culture, within that society. And when you destroy respect for individuals and institutions, when you systematically do everything you can to tear that down, the end result, brothers and sisters, can only be the kind of chaos that we see going on in our culture today. Because as those institutions and those individuals increasingly are denigrated and put down, I'll tell you who's going to step in, or what's going to step in. It's going to be chaos. That's what's going to step in. if order's not there. It's inevitable. That's what's going to happen. And unfortunately, that's what is happening. Where today are our children going to learn respect if you don't teach it to them? I believe that we have a divinely important prerogative placed upon us to teach our children what it means to respect God and to respect other people. It's vital for healthy kids and for a healthy society that we do that. A lot of the blame, if you want, that I place today on what's going on, I would lay at the feet of a media that just delights in tearing people down. And to a great degree, particularly now, as we approach next year, another election and so on, our politicians and our pundits. Our politicians and our pundits, obviously, and I don't care if you're talking right or left, doesn't make any difference. Liberal, conservative, doesn't make any difference. It seems like they're not interested in discussing issues. They're just interested in ripping each other apart and tearing each other down. And you know and I know that there is no way in an atmosphere like that constructive dialogue can take place. It can't, and it isn't. I mean, I listen to all these people lamenting how our country's being fractured and how it's being torn apart, and it is. And they're not doing anything to help. They're not doing anything to pull it together. Quite the opposite. It seems like they're doing everything they can to increase that fracture, because the second that you spend more time on tearing somebody down and caricaturing them and denigrating them than you do in trying to listen to what they have to say, there is no dialogue. There can be no constructive discussions, and there aren't. We are to be the counterculture, brethren. And we do not live in a Christian culture anymore. We need to quit kidding ourselves we do. Our culture ceased to be Christian decades ago. We don't live in a Christian culture. We live increasingly in a pagan culture. And as Christians in a pagan culture, we have a divine responsibility, as Jesus says in Matthew 5-7, to be salt and to be light, to show this world something different. And I do believe that starts with something as fundamental as treating other people with respect. None of us like to be disrespected. You don't like to be treated in a disrespectful way. None of us appreciate that. All that does is alienate you and alienate me and alienate others. As Christians, I think it's very important, and Scripture is going to drive home, we're going to talk about it, how important it is that we treat others with respect and that we give them the honor that is their due. It is in that kind of atmosphere, it's in that kind of culture where people can be drawn together, where things can be worked out, where society can function in the way that it needs to. And so you see, we're not talking about some kind of pie in the sky kind of thing at all. I believe we're talking about a reality that's incredibly important. I would argue that respect is not just polite. It's a survival skill that increasingly is being lost in this country. And we need to teach our children that survival skill of respecting God and respecting others. Now, I want to touch first of all on the importance of teaching respect for God. I would like for us to begin by just looking at a couple of passages where this is taught. Exodus 20, verse 7, this is in the context of the Ten Commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now, a few months ago, we looked at the Ten Commandments and we talked about them. We looked in detail at this one. And if you remember, as he talks about taking God's name in vain, this isn't simply talking about the fact that we shouldn't use God's name as a byword or as a curse word, and certainly we should not. I mean, how disrespectful is that? But on top of that, one can utilize his name in vain by doing a business deal and saying, well, as God is my witness, this is a great car, when you know it's a piece of junk. That's taking God's name in vain. That's misusing his name. Okay, he says, my name is to be held as holy. You are not going to take my name in vain. Now, he takes this so seriously that over in Leviticus 24, and I didn't put the passage up here, but in Leviticus 24, starting in verse 10, we find a situation where there's a man who has been caught blaspheming God. And the people want to know, what should we do with this guy? And if you'll read there, God says, stone him. You say, wow, stone him for taking God's name in vain? Yeah, God takes it that seriously. And please understand, there are some who say, well, you know, God should be bigger than that. I mean, why should it bother God what people say about him? Brothers and sisters, honestly, this is not about God's ego at all. And that's a total misrepresentation of this commandment if it's looked at in that context. Listen, God existed long before any of us did. Before there was any creation, before there were any human beings. He does not need us to honor him in any way. This is not about our somehow fulfilling his ego. That is not at all what this is about. What this is about is that if you do not respect him, if you do not honor him, there are all kinds of consequences that you're going to face in this life, because you obviously then don't respect his commands, don't respect his desire for how you want to live your life, and you're not going to do so. And so you're going to face all kinds of hideous consequences for that. It's like when I tell my 4-year-old grandson, no, you're not going to do that. I'm telling him that because I love him. Not because I want to be his buddy, not because I want to be his friend, not because I want him to like me, but because I don't want him to kill himself. I love him. And so I tell him, no, don't do that. Now, if he doesn't respect me, what's he going to do? He's going to go right ahead and do whatever he wants to do, isn't he? And that's one of the big problems we face today, and we're going to talk about that. But when God speaks, he wants you to listen. And the only way you're going to listen is if you respect him. And so he says, I'm ordering you right from the start, okay, right from the beginning, don't take my name in vain. Honor me, respect me. Now, move to the other end of the Old Testament, to the last book in the Old Testament, the book of Malachi, chapter 1, verse 6. A son honors his father, this is God talking, and a servant his master. If then I am a father, where's my honor? If I'm a master, where's my fear? Says the Lord of hosts to you, O priest, who despise my name. Now I want you to think about that for a second. How far has Israel slid spiritually by this point? And we're talking a little over 400 years before Christ. It's been about 1,000 years since the law was given. And where are they? These men, priests, who are supposed to be teaching the people about God, right? And about his will, what are they doing? They're failing to honor God. They're despising his name. Now, if the priests are despising God, if the priests don't respect God, what should you expect of the people? In England, 2% of the people are in a church building on Sunday morning. 2%. Why do you suppose that is? Because if you've watched any shows, if you paid any attention, you find a clergy who don't believe anything. a clergy who are simply a reflection of the popular culture, who are simply parroting what is popular. And they're offering absolutely no alternative. There's no counterculture there. And the people are going, why should we walk into a church building when we're not going to hear anything different, not going to be called to anything different than what we find in the world already? And that's absolutely right. As children of God, again, we are called to present a different voice. We are called to show the world something different. We are called to call the world to our Father and to show the world our Father. That's what we're to be about. And if all we're doing is parroting the popular culture, if all we're doing is reflecting the popular culture, we're betraying our call, just as those priests were, and failing to show God proper respect. God's name, Mom and Dad, Grandma and Grandpa, God's name needs to be safe on your lips. When your kids hear you talk about God, they hear in your voice respect. They don't hear you tossing His name out as a cuss word. They don't hear you disrespecting Him. They hear when you talk, they hear one who honors God. Dad, Mom, when they see you, they see someone who honors His Word, who respects the Word of God. I watched my mom and dad both wear Bibles out. I mean, until they fell into pieces. I wish you could have seen my dad's Bible and my mom's. They were taped together. They wore them out. I watched that. It makes a difference. Not just talking about honoring His Word. They're reading His Word and they're studying His Word. And that's critically important in teaching your children respect for God. You show them your respect for Him. When it comes to giving Him of your time and of your money, when it comes to worshiping Him, they need to see in your life that's a priority. Because if it's a priority in your life, then in everything you have, including your time, you honor Him. You respect Him. It's going to rub off. Inevitably, it will. And it needs to. That old saw, the apple never falls very far from the tree, is absolutely, painfully true. As I was working on this, it just hit me. Every Sunday morning, if we're all here, there are 9 of us who meet in that room back by the sound room to pray at 8:30. 6 elders, 3 ministers. 8 of the 9. 8 of the 9 have parents who are faithful Christians. Preachers, teachers, elders, rock solid members of the church. 8 of the 9 of us were raised in godly homes. The only one who wasn't blessed with that is Jerry Lee Walker. And Jerry Lee Walker started his own dynasty spiritually that way, with his kids and his grandkids and his great-grandkids. Now, brethren, is there any way in the world that it's accidental that of the 9 men who lead this church, 8 of them were raised by godly parents in godly homes who put an emphasis on godly things, who respected God? Is that coincidence? Or is that absolute evidence of how important it is that we consistently show our children a Christian example? Particularly when it comes to respecting our God. with our time and our efforts and our money. It is non-negotiable. It is absolutely vital that we do that. Because we are showing, not just telling, but showing our kids what it means to respect God. So we've got to teach them this foundational aspect of their relationship, because everything does really, everything, if you'll think about it, I know I've thought about it with me in my life, everything comes out of my respect for God. If I don't respect Him, I'm not going to respect my parents. If I don't respect Him, why should I respect laws that He's given, or laws based on what He has said? If I don't respect Him, why should I respect you? It all flows and starts with that basic right there of respecting God. It's critical that we teach our children and show our children respect for Him. Secondly, it's very, very important that we teach our kids to respect us as parents. Several passages of Scripture. Leviticus 19, verse 3. Every one of you shall revere his mother and his father. I am the Lord your God. Now, every one of you, no exceptions, I want you to revere or honor your mother and your father. Why? Because I'm the Lord your God. What's He saying? I've got the weight to order this. I've got the right to order this. And I'm telling you, I'm not asking you. I am commanding you, kids, honor your father and your mother. Deuteronomy 5, verse 16. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God commanded you. Why? That your days may be long, and that it may go well with you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. And I go back to what I said earlier. God's not giving this command just to give a command, okay? He's not telling this because He just wants to order people around. He's saying this because this is vital to your health. This is vital to your well-being. This is vital to you be able to function in society. This is vital to you getting along with others, that you be taught to honor your father and mother, and that you do that. Because there's all kinds of implications to that if you do and if you don't. 1 Timothy 3, verse 4, in the context of the qualities that are to be found in a man who shepherds the flock of God, an elder, a pastor, he must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. That's the English Standard Version. NIV translates, and see that his children obey him with proper respect. What's God saying? If a man is to lead my family, he better be able to lead his own family. If a man is wanting to lead the family of God, he better be able to show that he can lead his own family, that his children obey him with proper respect. I talked to you last week about watching a 3-year-old beat on his daddy in Colton's. Daddy trying to settle him down, and he's just wailing away at his daddy. How many 5-year-olds have you seen? Mama says, stop that, and they don't even look up. They don't pay one lick of attention because Mama ain't going to do anything about it, and they know Mama ain't going to do anything about it until Mama changes her tone. And they know Mama's tone, don't they? And as long as Mama's just saying it, and Mama's not screaming, Mama's not mad, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to respond. They don't respect Mama. They don't. They've got Mama niched. They know exactly when they need to do. It's just like, take out the trash. How many times do you have to say, take out the trash before the trash gets taken out? Clean your room. How many times do you have to say, clean your room before the room gets cleaned? And a whole lot of that is because kids don't respect mom. I mean, I'm sorry, tell me why else that's true. Except that kids don't respect their parents. Because mom and dad don't mean it when they say it. And one of the things I'm going to stress as we talk about this is you better mean it when you say it. And you better back it up when you say it. If you expect them to respect you. I was listening to a radio commercial the other day, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what company it was for. It was on the radio out of Tulsa. This lady was talking about some company, I don't know if it was a plumbing company or HVAC or electric, what it was, but anyway, they'd sent a fellow out, and in this commercial, she was praising this company, and in particular, praising this employee. And one of the things she said that really struck me was, she said, and the man that you sent out to do the work said, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. It is a sad commentary on our culture that's a big deal today. But it is. I mean, it was a big enough deal. She's saying, I'm going to recommend this company to anybody. I mean, I'd have these guys come out. He treated me with respect. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Where'd that go? Why did that disappear? Why shouldn't we be teaching our children to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and yes, sir, and no, sir? Why shouldn't we be making sure that our children address us with respect when they speak to us? My daddy spanked me from time to time. My daddy never beat me. My daddy never hit me, except one time. And I was sitting in the back seat of the car, and we were heading home from church, and I could tell you to this day exactly where we were on our way home. And we were talking about me going over to some friends, and I was basically telling him that I was going to go over to these friends. And I was, no question. I was a super wise 13, probably 14. I had it all figured out, and I was going to run my parents. And this hand came across the front seat, moving backwards with force. Pow, right here. Well, it's violence against children. It taught me a lesson. I guarantee you, that was the last time that I smarted off to my dad. He made it clear, no, you're not going to do that. And he was right. And I'm not mad at him, and I'm not broke because of it. I'm better because of it. He would not brook disrespect. You shouldn't either. You shouldn't either. You're not doing your children any favors if you do. If they don't learn respect from you, if they don't learn to respect you, who are they going to respect? It is vital, brothers and sisters. It is the loving thing to do to teach our children to respect God and to respect their parents. That will allow them all kinds of open doors in so many ways that will otherwise be closed to them. I can't stress this enough. If you love your kids, you'll train your kids up in the way they should go, because down the line, that's going to pay huge benefits for them in multiple ways. And if you don't, there are going to be all kinds of consequences in a negative way that they're going to face because of it. And we see those all the time in a heartbreaking fashion today. And so, please keep in mind, as we train up our children in the way they should go, Let's teach them respect for God and respect for parents. Next week we'll talk some more about respect and some other areas in which it's vitally important that we teach our children respect. If you want to show your respect for God, one of the most important ways you can do that is by trusting Him. Trusting Him. I believe one of the greatest gifts that we can give to anybody is for them to know that they can trust us. One of the highest compliments you can pay anybody is to let them know that you trust them. I've argued for years, in many ways I think in a marriage, trust is more important than love. Because you can love somebody, but if you can't trust them, you can't live with them. Trust is a vital bottom line in a healthy relationship. If you trust God this morning and you're ready to give your life to Him, you want to show your respect for Him and for what He did for you by sending His Son to the cross, there's no better time this morning to confess your belief in Jesus as the Son of God and put on your Lord in baptism. If there's any way that we can help you in your walk with Him, would you come? While we stand and while we sing.
Jesus, for the cleansing are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His graces now? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are you garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you walking daily by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crucified? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are you garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are you garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood